everybody, and welcome back to another Chat Stats and Fun Facts. It is the season preview of Drake Callender, brought to you by the Dry Pink Dialogue 2025 season preview. Saur is a very controversial figure, I think, these days at Inter Miami. Once a hero, now a fallen hero, but ready to emerge as the man he has always been. Captain Drake, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I mention Drake Callender?
I was kind of dreading this one because I know there's going to be a lot of polar ideas about who Drake Callender is and what he brings to the team. And I'm so glad you used the word once a hero, because my one-word response to your question is a comic book reference. And I think he's not a hero right now. He's not a villain. He's an anti-hero. Somebody I think who is important to this team, but people don't necessarily praise him or put him on a pedestal. So I'm going to go with my one-word answer as anti-hero Drake. This is going to be an interesting preview.
No, he's certainly a character that has a big role. And will that role, will the writers of that script make him out to be the hero again? Or will it be he becomes the villain? And so I think, as you mentioned, he's sort of has potential to go either way. And I think that's what makes this conversation so interesting. We put off talking about Drake because we wanted to see what he looked like in preseason. We wanted to see how the goalkeeping situation developed. And he's been hurt for most of it. He got hurt on international duty with the U.S. men's national team in January and hasn't gotten a chance to play in the preseason yet. And that has, I think, it's shaped how we thought about this goalkeeping situation in a way that might not be fair. And I want to get into that. But first, let's start with this 2024 season. Drake's third as the sort of undisputed starter. I guess second as the undisputed starter, but third as the starter. 42 games, 3,780 minutes, 134 saves, 67 conceded, 5 clean sheets, 21 games captained. I will say there are moments where the advanced analytics loved him. There are moments the advanced analytics were sort of meh about him. So, 5-game stretches where he was phenomenal. And then, obviously, I think there was a couple high-profile moments that we didn't really see, high-profile mistakes that we didn't really see in 2023. So, here's my fun fact before we get into the rest of this conversation. He is the longest tenured member of Inter Miami. He joined the club before the club's first game. He was drafted by, I believe, San Jose, and then traded for right after the Super Draft back in December 2019. So he has been at Inter Miami since the beginning, and he's still here and ready to play a big role. Let's talk about why he's controversial first, because I think there's people that love him, and then we've seen this in this preseason. Rocco Rios Novo has gotten a lot of love and shouts, and I think Oscar Ustari has gotten a lot of love and shouts, and I think a lot of people have said they need to go out and get a new goalkeeper. I think the team looked at bringing in a new goalkeeper. So why is he so controversial when I also think some of our best memories as Inter Miami have Drake prominently at the front?
And I don't want to make this conversation about OGs versus newer Inter Miami fans who joined after the Messi era, but it almost seems like fans who didn't necessarily see him from the start think that he's a little bit more disposable compared to fans who have seen him from his very first day at Inter Miami, who treat him as the original, one of the originals, right? We talk about Robert Taylor being one of the originals, the last few left on this team. Drake Callender is one of them. I don't think 2023 was a bad season for him per se. It wasn't phenomenal. 2024, sorry. It wasn't phenomenal compared to what he did in 2023, where I thought he was an absolute beast. Yeah. And the issue was that he didn't necessarily take that step up from 2023 to 2024, where everyone thought he's going to consistently perform at that level that he did in the previous year. So a few mistakes here and there, not necessarily living up to the standards that he'd set for himself. And then perhaps having some visible gaps in his game being exposed because of the defense that was playing in front of him didn't help his 2024 season as much. I'm still living in the past for some reason. So those are some of the thoughts that come to mind as to why he's controversial. And I feel like people have hammered down a little bit too much on a few mistakes that he may have made in a couple of games and are ready to move on from Drake Callender. But I don't fall in that camp. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on why you think he's controversial.
Well, I don't even want to make it like I think I can reframe it away from just the OGs versus the people that have come in the last 18 months.
Please do.
If you watched Drake in 2022 and 2023, you saw that he can be an excellent goalkeeper. So you know he has that in him. And I do think he took a step back in terms of his consistency in 2024. He has elite shot stopping upside that he doesn't maintain consistently. But when it comes, he's a match winner in a way that few goalkeepers are. I think we saw in the playoffs, Brad Guzan stood on his head for 3 games to help eliminate Inter Miami. Drake Callender can do that. That's in his bag. But he doesn't do it consistently. And listen, if he did, he would be playing at a lot higher level than Inter Miami. We saw completely blanking Matt Turner do something similar for the New England Revolution and earned a multi-million-dollar move to Arsenal that next offseason. So like that's the peak that Drake can get to where he's absolutely helping your team win games, not just a contributor, but winning games for them. And so I think if you've been around and you saw in 2022 what he did, you saw the step up he took in 2023, you saw him win games for Inter Miami, you believe in this guy because you've seen it from him. And if you just started watching in 2024, you saw more of the high profile moments and less of the absolute game saving saves, although he did have a couple. I mean, I don't want to take away from him. So I think that's what it is. It's not about, oh, we have nostalgia because he's from the past, but it's just you've seen it with your own eyes and you know he can be that guy. So that's a big part of it. I also think Drake Callender, and I want to pivot to this, has thrived in the years where he had a potential replacement on the bench. And in 2024, he didn't have that. Right? In 2022, Diop and Nick Marsman were there, and he had to beat them out. And then in 2023, Nick Marsman was still on the roster for much of the season, and so there was a guy there that could take his place if he wasn't playing well. 2024, CJ Dos Santos never really was that guy. So we will see now. Oscar Ustadi is in camp. He's with the team from the get-go. He's getting preseason starts. There's a chance he starts the season if Drake Callender can't get healthy in time. So he's going to have a real competition, and it's a question of can he step up and bring out the best in him? Will that bring out the best in him, or is that is Oscar Ustadi too much for him? I don't know. I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, this is a fascinating conversation. And honestly, I'm glad that we're able to have this conversation because I think competition is the most important thing internally for a team as well. It brings out the best in players. And sometimes you can get a little bit too comfortable when you don't have a backup who is challenging you for your spot, right? You don't necessarily are on your toes all the time trying to bring out the best in you. So the fact that he now has Oscar Ustari and perhaps Rocos Rios Novos as well. I may have butchered that name. But the fact that he has that competition behind him means that he has to fight for his place. And I'm all for that. I'm rooting for Drake because I think he has the capability to come out on top, prove that he's the number one goalkeeper. But it's always a positive sign that there's competition within the team. And if Oscar Ustari does better than Drake Callender, I'll be all for Oscar Ustari being our number one. But I think Drake Callender will thrive with competition behind him.
I also think we need to frame this right because it's a little bit of a tricky situation. If you are going into the offseason, I think you should consider Drake Callender the number one until proven otherwise.
Yes.
And this year, unlike last year, Ustari will be given a chance to prove otherwise. But Drake Callender is like, he's the guy. He's been the guy for the last 3 years. He's very comfortable in this position. He captained 21 games last year. That was more than any other player, including Lionel Messi in the regular season. And so, he is well entrenched in between the posts and Inter Miami. You should consider him the number one. But at the same time, Javier Mascherano is coming in with he's a new coach. He doesn't have those same memories that like a Tata Martino or Phil Neville would have had. And he hasn't even gotten much time to see him in training because Drake got hurt before he started training with Inter Miami when the preseason started. So it may have been a day or two, but really Drake Callender hasn't had a chance to get in front of Javier Mascherano and prove himself yet. Whereas Oscar Ustari is the veteran you feel very comfortable with, and Rios Novo is the young kid who's gotten every day in training. So I think we should think of Drake Callender as the number one and probably the person with the highest upside. But Oscar Ustari, I think, is a good backup, and so Drake has to be on his toes, and the highs have to be higher than the dips, or you have to be consistently better so that the dips don't hurt you and lose you your spot.
Yeah, he has that in him. And I want to reiterate on a point that I made previously. It's never easy when you, as a team, are leaking goals, right? Yes, Drake Callender might not have been at his 100% last season, but neither was our defense. Or let's say, neither was our spine or midfield that was creating those
Well,
defensive
defensive,
transitions for
yeah,
the oppositions. Our defensive
defensive.
woes were quite poor. And that never helps a goalkeeper. Yes, you can make a case about when that happens, your goalkeeper has to step up and be the last line of defense. But I do think with a newer, fresher defense in front of him, perhaps a defense that has more chemistry now, is a little bit more settled, and with Javier Mascherano plays a more solid style of football, he might actually be able to take that next step up. So it'll be interesting to see how he shapes up with this
Well,
new style
and,
defense. But
and
I wanted to
the
bring that
next
point.
step, just going back to last year for a second, I will
Mm-hmm.
say Inter Miami had far and away the best overperformance compared to their XG of any
Exactly.
team, and part of that, that's both offensively and defensively, or goals allowed versus expected goals allowed and goals for. And part of that is because Messi and Suarez clearly are elite, and so they outperform their expected goals because they're some of the best players ever. But another big part of that was because Drake Callender was making saves that most goalkeepers wouldn't be, and he was preventing goals at a pretty impressive clip. So again, I understand that there was some highlight moments that looked bad, but Drake Callender over the course of the season actually did a lot of good. I completely forgot my other point. I apologize. And it was a good one too. Darn.
You come to it.
What were we talking about before I went on that rant?
Bad defense in front of Drake Callender, leaking goals.
This is great.
Goals.
It's great podcasting, right?
Yeah.
He was asked to do a ton as a goalkeeper defensively, because in the midfield, the team's defense, not just the defenders, but the team's defense wasn't as good as I think most people would have wanted. Clearly, it wasn't elite in terms of top of the league type defense. We saw some of those teams in Charlotte and Columbus, and Seattle was phenomenal last year. Inter Miami doesn't have that level of talent. They have some young players that maybe they can get there this year. Maybe Javier Mascherano will set the team up in a way that makes them more solid defensively. But part of the reason he had some bad moments is because he was left on an island a lot, which gives him the opportunity to make highlight saves, but also, can
doesn't help when you're being barraged with goals and shots. Yeah.
So I guess maybe that wasn't as good of a point as I thought. Drake Callender, good MLS goalkeeper. I think that's really where I'm at with this. And if Oscar Ustari is going to be better, fine. I'm not against Oscar Ustari, but I do think Drake Callender is going to get the chance to be the number one goalkeeper. And I think if he plays well, he's going to keep it. That's my expectation.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, whatever side of the debate you're on about Drake Callender, one way or another, it's going to be better for the team now, because if Drake Callender plays well, that's better for the team. So there's no reason for us to criticize him if he's actually playing well and contributing. If Drake Callender doesn't play well, he gets replaced by Oscar Ustari, because I do think Javier Mascherano is going to be ruthless because he doesn't have that level of, let's say, loyalty or sense of playing Drake Callender just because he's his man. So now, if Oscar Ustari plays better than Drake Callender, that in itself is better for this team. So we're in a really good spot when it comes to our goalkeeping situation in that sense. I personally trust Drake Callender. As you said, I think he's more than capable of showing exactly why we like him as a player. And he has room to improve. I think he definitely can take a step up in certain areas. Great shot stopper, not that great with his feet, but I do think he can actually get better with that as well and learn as the season progresses. So I hope he takes the step up, and I can see your light bulb go off. So I think you've found your point finally.
I did. I don't think he needs to improve. I think he needs to be more consistent. Like, I actually think that was one of the things last year that hurt him a little bit, was he was trying to be better with his feet. He was taking on uncomfortable situations with his feet, and that hurt him sometimes when he didn't execute effectively. I think he was trying to take a step forward in terms of command of the box. I actually think he did take steps forward there. But for me, his biggest value is with the shot stopping. So it's not about improving in ways that he hasn't proven himself yet. It's about being consistent throughout. I have seen firsthand one of my favorite teams go from an excellent shot stopper to a guy who is well known for being good with his feet, and it was a disaster. So it is not, in my opinion, a good strategy to move on from a very good shot stopping goalkeeper just because you want more ability out of the back or whatever. Like, that is a bonus, but the number one goal is to keep the ball out of the back of the net. So for me, just give me a little bit more consistency, Drake, and I think you're going to be absolutely everything this team needs.
Yeah, and sometimes you may go for a goalkeeper that wants to play from the back, and then you don't end up playing from the back because you need your entire defensive unit to be able to do that together. So I think the quality of a goalkeeper is to make saves. Drake Callender has that in abundance. Just play to his strengths. And I have a feeling under Mascherano, that's going to get a lot more highlighted, and he is going to go back to the 2023 Drake. It's a big claim, but I think he's going to be better than he was last season.
Okay, let's talk about 2025. Here's my over-under. Number 1.5, number 2 in games captained for Inter Miami this season. This would imply he's basically the number one goalkeeper, and this would imply that the captain's hierarchy is the same as last year, where obviously Messi's number one, but when Messi doesn't start, Drake Callender got the armband basically every game in 2024. Do you think he's going to do all of those things?
That's a really interesting one, because I don't think it's just about him being the number one goalkeeper, also Mascherano's preferences.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with. I have a feeling he might give it to Busquets, but I'm going to go with over. I think he's going to, I think the locker room likes him, and he is that player behind the scenes. So I'm going to go with over. He's going to be our second in command. He's going to be Captain Drake. Let's make him the hero again.
I'm going to go under. I think it's going to be Busquets, if I'm being totally honest with you. But anyways, any other predictions, hot takes for 2025 for Drake Callender?
No, I've already said it. I think 2023 Drake should be back, hopefully. I don't know what the situation was in terms of him leaving the club this offseason or whatever, but he's staying. I have it in my mind that he's staying. I don't think the situation is going to change. As you said, he should be our number one goalkeeper, at least until proven otherwise. And in that sense, I think he's going to do a good job this season.
Let me ask you a question. I know he's got a little bit of an injury right now, but let's fast forward about a month to if Inter Miami beats Sporting Kansas City and then they beat Cavalier in the second round, they play, let's say, the Columbus Crew in the third round, or LAFC in the third round of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. First game at Chase Stadium. Who's in goal for Inter Miami?
Drake Callender.
I agree. I definitely agree. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one, and have a lovely day. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this, and have a wonderful day.